High in the mountains, where clouds kiss the jagged peaks, lies a city that remained hidden from the world for centuries. Imagine colossal stone houses and grand plazas, meticulously constructed along a narrow mountain ridge at an astonishing altitude of 2,400 meters, approximately 7,900 feet. The walls are composed of gigantic granite blocks, fitted together with such incredible precision that it's said not even a sheet of paper could be slipped between them. What makes this feat even more baffling is that the people who built it possessed neither iron saws, nor cranes, nor even simple wheeled carts for construction. This is Machu Picchu, the lost city of the Incas, a site that continues to pose more questions than answers for scholars today. How did these ancient masters manage to lift multi-ton stones up such a steep incline and create structures that have endured for 5 centuries, resisting earthquakes and torrential rains? Today, we will attempt to unravel the secrets concealed within these silent temples and stone staircases nestled amidst the clouds. The story of Machu Picchu began approximately 550 years ago. At that time, the Inca ruler Pachacuti decided to build a private retreat, far from prying eyes. The chosen location was as wild and remote as possible. Deep ravines on all sides, a roaring mountain river below, and nothing but the sharp Andean peaks surrounding it. The Incas had no books or architectural blueprints. They did not record their knowledge in written text. Yet, their understanding of construction surpassed that of many modern engineers. The most astonishing aspects of their genius are hidden not on the surface, but within the mountain itself. To prevent the city from sliding down during heavy rains, the builders laid an intricate underground system of channels and created layers of sand and gravel. Nearly 2/3 of the entire effort to construct the city was dedicated to this invisible, subterranean foundation. Thanks to this remarkable ingenuity, Machu Picchu still stands firmly in place today, despite enduring thousands of powerful storms over the centuries. The primary building material was gray granite, sourced directly from a quarry located right at the summit of the mountain ridge, an ingenious logistical decision. Enormous pieces of rock were separated using a simple yet time-consuming method. Dry wooden wedges were driven into cracks and then soaked with water. The wood would swell, slowly but powerfully splitting the hard stone. However, precisely how these massive stones were then shaped and transported to the construction site remains an enduring mystery. The Incas didn't merely stack blocks. They painstakingly polished them and meticulously crafted their edges to interlock like pieces of a complex puzzle. Should an earthquake strike, this interlocking masonry wouldn't crumble. Instead, the stones would vibrate slightly and then settle back perfectly into their original positions. Every turn of a pathway and every window in this city was designed with meticulous thought, often aligned with the sun's movement across the sky. Machu Picchu remained invisible to the wider world for over 400 years, a fact that seems almost impossible given its location just 100 kilometers, about 62 miles, from Cusco, the former capital of the Inca Empire. When Spanish conquistadors invaded these lands in the 15th century, their influence led to the destruction of many monuments and the alteration of the region's landscape. Yet, Machu Picchu seemed to dissolve into the clouds, untouched. The Spanish had heard legends of lost cities in the jungle, but the steep slopes and dense vegetation provided an impenetrable shield for this site. No soldier in heavy armor could possibly navigate the vertical cliffs and wild forests that concealed the path to the city. Consequently, Machu Picchu became one of the rare places that escaped looting and preserved its pristine appearance. As time passed, even local inhabitants began to forget the existence of the stone structures high in the mountains, relegating them to the realm of ancient myths. Everything changed in July 1911. Hiram Bingham, an American historian and explorer, arrived in Peru searching for Vilcabamba, the last stronghold of the Incas in their struggle against the Spanish. Bingham was not a professional archaeologist, but he was driven by a passion for discovery and backed by Yale University. Local residents told him about ruins atop a mountain they called Machu Picchu, which translates from Quechua as Old Mountain. On July 24th, a cold and rainy day, Bingham, accompanied by a local sergeant and a 10-year-old shepherd boy named Pablito, began his ascent. Music, The boy knew the way because his family lived nearby and utilized the ancient terraces for planting vegetables, completely unaware they were cultivating the land of a great empire. The climb was arduous. The travelers had to literally clamber up sheer cliffs, clinging to tree roots. When they finally reached a mist-shrouded plateau, Bingham froze in astonishment. Before him, emerging from the dense jungle foliage, stood majestic walls of white granite. Trees and vines entwined around the houses, growing through windows and doorways. Yet, the quality of the stonework was so impeccable that the buildings appeared as if they had only recently been abandoned. Bingham recorded in his diary that he could hardly believe his eyes. In this remote, forgotten place, on the edge of a precipice, stood the finest examples of stone architecture he had ever witnessed. He spent hours wandering through the labyrinths, clearing centuries of dirt by hand from the perfectly polished surfaces. The first thing that struck the explorer was the complete absence of any European presence. There were no Catholic crosses, no houses rebuilt in the Spanish style. It was a time capsule preserved by nature itself. However, Bingham made an error that confused historians for decades. He was convinced he had found Vilcabamba, the secret refuge where the Incas hid from the conquistadors. It was later discovered that the real Vilcabamba lay much deeper in the jungle and appeared far more modest. Machu Picchu proved to be something else entirely, more significant and more enigmatic. Bingham initiated extensive excavations, during which hundreds of remains were found, predominantly female, giving rise to the initial, though ultimately false, theory that the city was a sanctuary for virgins of the sun. After photographs were published in National Geographic magazine in 1913, Machu Picchu instantly became a global sensation. Scientists still needed to ascertain precisely how such architectural magnificence could have arisen at this altitude, amidst sheer cliffs, without the use of basic tools available to the Egyptians or Romans. When you stand in the main plaza of Machu Picchu and gaze at the surrounding walls, only one thought comes to mind: it's impossible. The Incas had no lifting cranes, no steel cables, and not even basic iron crowbars. Their entire toolkit consisted of hard stones, bronze chisels, and wooden implements. Nevertheless, they worked with granite, one of the hardest rocks in the world. For the city's construction, the Incas utilized a local quarry situated directly on the ridge summit. This was a brilliant logistical decision, as hauling such massive blocks from the river valley below would have been a virtually insurmountable task, even for thousands of laborers. The most striking aspect of Machu Picchu's architecture is its so-called dry stone masonry. The Incas did not use mortar, clay, or any other binding agent. The stones hold together solely by their immense weight and the perfect fit of their unique shapes. Each block in a wall has an individual form, potentially featuring anywhere from 6 to 12 faces. The master builders carved special protrusions and indentations into the stones, which interlocked music, like the components of a complex, three-dimensional puzzle. If you attempt to slip a knife blade between two such blocks, you will find it impossible. Such precision demanded incredible patience. A stone would be placed against its neighbor, checked for a snug fit, removed if imperfect, reground, and this process repeated dozens of times until the joint was absolutely flawless. But why did the Incas complicate their lives to such an extent? The answer lies in the high seismic activity of the Andes. A conventional brick wall with mortar will crack and crumble during a strong earthquake. Machu Picchu's walls function differently. During seismic tremors, the stones begin to vibrate and subtly dance in their places without collapsing. They absorb the Earth's energy, and when the shaking ceases, the blocks, under their own immense weight, simply fall back into their original, perfectly aligned grooves. This ingenious design has rendered the city virtually eternal. It seems as though the city wasn't merely built on the summit, but rather grew organically from it. Interestingly, Machu Picchu features different types of masonry. Rougher walls made of smaller stones were used for ordinary homes and utilitarian structures, while temples and imperial quarters were constructed with fanatical attention to detail. The main temple and the sacred plaza exemplify the pinnacle of this craftsmanship. Here, the blocks are polished to a mirror-like sheen, and the building corners subtly incline inwards. This isn't a builder's error, but yet another clever trick to enhance structural stability. The Incas understood the laws of physics on an intuitive level, creating masterpieces that we today recognize as an architectural marvel, achieved despite all conventional wisdom of their time. Machu Picchu is not merely a collection of beautiful buildings. It is a true engineering masterpiece that functions like a single, living organism. When viewed from above, the city reveals endless rows of stone steps encircling the mountain. These are the famous agricultural terraces of the Incas. Their construction was a vital necessity, not a decorative element. On the steep Andean slopes, an ordinary field would simply be washed away by the first heavy rainfall. The Incas solved this problem by creating artificial, flat platforms. Each terrace is a layered cake. At the very bottom lie large stones, followed by a layer of gravel, then sand, and only at the very top, a layer of fertile soil, which workers carried in sacks from the river valley. This terrace design served several purposes simultaneously. Firstly, they acted as a gigantic filter, allowing water to drain without pooling or eroding the slope. Secondly, the stones within the terraces would absorb heat from the sun during the day and release it to the plant roots at night. This created a unique microclimate, enabling the cultivation of warm weather crops like corn at an elevation of 2,400 meters. Scholars estimate that the area of these sky gardens was ample enough to feed the entire city population, which numbered around 700 to 800 people. The Incas were completely self-sufficient in terms of food, never depending on external supplies from the valley. However, the greatest challenge for any mountain city is water. Machu Picchu has neither wells nor large reservoirs. Nevertheless, a unique, 500-year-old aqueduct system still functions here today. Inca engineers located a natural source of pure water on the slope of a neighboring mountain. They constructed a stone channel approximately 750 meters, about half a mile long, with a precisely calculated gradient. This channel delivers water directly into the heart of the city. To ensure the flow remained consistent and did not erode the channel, the builders calculated the system's capacity with an astonishing error margin of just a few percent. Water first fills a basin designated for the ruler, then flows sequentially into 15 more fountains and reservoirs distributed throughout the city. Cleanliness and hygiene were paramount for the Incas. The entire water supply system was kept separate from the drainage channels, which carried away dirty rainwater. The Incas understood that standing water beneath buildings would lead to catastrophe. This is why beneath every plaza and every large building in Machu Picchu, layers of gravel and sand are concealed. Even during the most intense tropical storms, when tons of water deluge the city, it immediately drains into the earth and is channeled away from the walls through subterranean outlets. Today's architects admit that replicating such a system without modern pumps and plastic pipes would be exceedingly difficult. The engineering genius of the Incas also manifested in how they integrated the city into the landscape. They didn't attempt to alter the mountain. Instead, they adapted to it. If a massive boulder stood in a builder's path, they didn't try to remove it. They transformed it into part of a foundation, an altar, or a house wall. This approach preserved the integrity of the mountain range. The city became an extension of the rock itself, making it virtually invulnerable to landslides. Every element of Machu Picchu, from a simple drainage channel to a massive retaining wall, testifies to the ancient builders' possession of knowledge that we are only just beginning to comprehend. They created an autonomous system, capable of existing in complete isolation from the rest of the world for an indefinite period. Life within Machu Picchu was governed by strict order and sacred rituals. To understand who its inhabitants were, one must examine the city's layout. It is clearly divided into two parts: a residential sector with ordinary homes and a sacred district, where the most incredible structures are concentrated. Historians long debated the precise purpose of this site. Today, most scholars agree that the city served as a royal retreat for the highest nobility and Emperor Pakakudi himself. Here, he could relax from the bustle of the capital, host important guests, and conduct religious ceremonies. Machu Picchu could accommodate between 500 and 1,000 people simultaneously, including servants, artisans, and priests who maintained order and purity in this sacred place. The entire city functioned as a closed ecosystem, where every square meter was utilized with maximum efficiency. Access was only possible through narrow gates, easily guarded by a small contingent of warriors. The Temple of the Sun is particularly captivating, being the only semicircular building in the city. Its walls are constructed around a natural rock formation that serves as an altar. On the day of the winter solstice, the first ray of sunlight penetrates a narrow window of the temple and falls precisely onto the center of this stone. This proves the Incas were exceptional astronomers. They didn't just build houses, they created a colossal stone calendar. Directly beneath the temple lies a mysterious grotto, known as the Royal Tomb. Its walls are lined with perfectly polished blocks, and inside, an eternal coolness and silence prevail. This stone is carved directly from the mountain's bedrock and oriented to the cardinal directions with astonishing accuracy. For the Incas, the sun was not merely a celestial body but a living god, upon whom harvest and life itself depended. The Intihuatana is one of the few such artifacts to survive to this day, as the Spanish typically destroyed such sacred sites first. The stone exudes a strange tranquility, and many modern visitors claim to feel a warmth emanating from it, even on cloudy days. Social life in the city revolved around the central plaza. Music festivals and gatherings were held here, where important matters of the empire were discussed. Residential houses were simple but functional. They lacked furniture in our modern sense. People slept on animal hides or mats, and belongings were stored in niches carved directly into the stone walls. Despite the ascetic lifestyle, daily routines were meticulously planned. Each residential block featured ventilation and water drainage. Every district had its own workshops, where clothing was made from alpaca wool and ceramic pottery was crafted. Machu Picchu existed as a self-sufficient world, protected by mountains and gods, where every inhabitant knew their place and their task in the collective prosperity of the empire. Life here flowed rhythmically, guided by natural cycles and celestial signs, which experienced stargazers interpreted from their stone terraces. Despite its grandeur, Machu Picchu was inhabited for a relatively short period, just over 100 years. Around 1572, its residents abruptly abandoned their homes, taking with them all their most valuable possessions. The city was not destroyed by enemies or burned. No signs of a major battle were found on its streets. It simply fell silent, gradually becoming overgrown by dense jungle that concealed it from the world for centuries. Scholars still debate what precisely compelled the people to forsake this architectural paradise. The most logical theory is linked to the arrival of the Spanish. Although the conquistadors never found the path to the citadel, they brought European diseases to the continent, to which the Incas had no immunity. Music, a smallpox epidemic likely, became a decisive factor in the decline of the city's population. Another reason could lie in the civil war between heirs to the throne, which fractured the empire shortly before the invaders arrived. With the collapse of central authority in Cusco, supplying and sustaining life in such a complex and remote location as Machu Picchu became impossible. The Incas retreated deeper into the jungle, selva, hoping to weather the turbulent times, but they never returned. Most surprisingly, before their departure, they deliberately destroyed the main road leading to the city to prevent anyone from tracking them or desecrating the sacred site. The history of Machu Picchu teaches us that the greatness of a civilization is measured not only by its wealth, but also by its ability to create in harmony with the surrounding world. The ancient builders left us a monument that has survived empires, wars, and cataclysms. Gazing at these perfectly fitted granite blocks and watching the sun illuminate the altar of the Temple of the Sun each morning, one begins to believe that for human perseverance and talent, nothing is impossible. Even if masters possess only simple stones and faith in their gods, they can build a city that will stand forever, reminding descendants of a golden age of an empire lost in the clouds of the Andes.